huge welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today from all over the place by the looks of it so far, and people still popping in. So excited to have two beautiful women sharing about financial literacy. And I was just sharing with the ladies that one of the things that I've noticed in some of the conversations I've had as I've been doing the CEO Roundtable Tour is that people think that they have to wait till they've made massive amounts of money to actually really start to think about their finances and how they can set themselves up for a beautiful future that they want to be able to create. And so today, the ladies are going to blow all of those myths away and talk about, what it is that they've created. But I'm going to do official intros because I think it's really important for you all to know who it is that is sharing with you today. So first of all, we have Chani Thompson, a visionary and multi-passionate entrepreneur who has built success across multiple industries, from network marketing to property development to transformational coaching. After transitioning from a nursing career to full-time entrepreneurship, Chani made the bold decision to pursue her dreams of time freedom, financial abundance, and creating a life on her own terms with the Juice Plus company. The decision became the catalyst for unprecedented success. Within just 3 years of joining Juice Plus, Chani built one of the top 5 teams in the country, demonstrating her dedication to mastering her craft and supporting her team's success, which led her to become led her to build a multi-dollar investment portfolio currently valued at over $5 million, successfully developed 13 luxury villas at a hotel in Bali, where I've stayed, which is gorgeous, hold diverse investments including property, S&P 500 and cryptocurrency, and created complete financial freedom, allowing for spacious, intentional living. And I remember when Chani started, that nurse way back then. It's so gorgeous to see the journey that you've been on. Her approach to wealth building combines disciplined financial principles with strategic diversification. There's no such thing as luck around this. You'll hear that it's all about really being intentional. She's committed to elevating the network marketing profession, raising industry standards, and pioneering a new evolution of network marketing. So Chani has been with us at the Juice Plus company. She's just celebrated her 10th anniversary in October. So well done. Welcome to Chani, PMD Plus. And right alongside her, we have the beautiful Lauren Kerr. Before joining Juice Plus, Lauren was a psychology graduate working in child protection, deeply committed but burning out fast. Though her work was meaningful, she longed for a much more positive path, one that empowered women holistically in health, self-worth, and financial freedom. And it's just been an honor watching that journey as well. Skeptical at first, she never imagined she'd find all of that in network marketing. But 10 years on, she's done just that, helping women build a life above zero that aligns with their highest values. She rose rapidly, reaching NMD in 2017, EMD in 2020. And in recent years, she's embraced a whole new chapter, motherhood, now raising 2 beautiful daughters with her husband, Dan. And she has also been officially 9 years, nearly 10 years in March 26. So huge welcome to our gorgeous Lauren as well. And both of these ladies, it's just been a joy watching their starts in our beautiful industry, beautiful company, to now mamas, empowered, and really creating the life that they dream for. So I am going to hand over to these lovely ladies, and I am going to get out of the way, should I say. So I'm going to replace my spotlight there with Chani and with Lauren, and you guys can decide how you go from here.
Amazing. Thanks, ladies. It's such an honor to be here today. I know we are both really excited. I'm going to jump straight in. We've actually got some really cool slides with you guys today, so I'm going to see if I can share those with you. You'd think after 10 years in business, I'd feel confident doing this, but I'm just a bit mindful. So let me know if you guys can see my slides okay, because I've got lots of windows open. We're good. Amazing. So like we said, we're really excited to come in and talk about financial literacy. And today, Chani and I are going to be doing a duo like we always do. I'm going to be talking a little bit more about actually the education and mindset before Chani comes in and talks strategy and structure. We really want to make sure you leave today feeling like no matter where you are on your journey, you can go and implement things straight away and you can feel empowered financially with that. So a little backstory for you. When I actually came across this industry, I don't know if any of you will be able to relate, I realized something really powerful. up until that point, I hadn't actually been surrounded by anyone in my personal life who had true wealth. I had seen women who had been great parents, who had successful careers, but I hadn't seen many women in my personal network who had both, where they had created generational wealth or a big net wealth, or they had freedom or they had purpose. I felt like a lot of women that I personally had seen had to choose between having a really great career or they were at home being stay-at-home mamas. And then I saw what would happen later on in life, that a lot of those women that I had seen be these stay-at-home mamas end up being one of the two marriages that would end in divorce. And I'd also see them, because of the work they took away or the time they took away from the workforce, working in their 50s and their 60s with no assets. They never got ahead as single mums. They never were able to buy property. Um, they had low paying jobs in their 50s and 60s just to make ends meet. They never had, didn't have super. And then it just inspired me to go on a bit of a journey to educate myself. And I soon found that actually 1 in 3 Australian women retire with no superannuation at all. And women retire with 35% less super than men. And this is because of the time we take away from the workforce to look after babies. Women over 55 are the fastest growing group of homeless Australians. That's a 2024 stat. 60% of women over 45 say they don't have enough savings to retire comfortably. And that was personally what I had seen in the women in my network who I had seen chose to be the mum, and it's beautiful, honorable work, but they never had the opportunity to build that wealth or invest. And so I remember thinking, how is that fair? Firstly, I see these mums give everything and make so many sacrifices, but I also didn't know if there was another option. So I thought for me to get ahead, that would mean I'll be the first in my family to go to university. So you'll see that's me graduating in the little photo there with my hubby. I thought that was me getting ahead. I'd get a really good paying job where I would hopefully be able to make above the average wage and have a bit more freedom around the hours that I chose to work. But I had no financial literacy. I had no business bone in my body. No one ever taught me about being financially empowered or financially smart or anything like that. So I graduated, got a job working in child protection. I was making average money, but I was burning out. And I was following a model that kept me capped, not just in income, but in impact and freedom. And so when I came across this beautiful community, you said it's my first, that photo there's actually my first conference 2017. What I actually was really excited about when I found this community, that for the first time I was surrounded by women who had real wealth. So they were making money, but they were lit up, they had purpose, they were also with their babies. And I was surrounded not just by women who had wealth, but different kind of conversations, women talking about creating lives that they loved, not just careers that look good on paper. And I was really fascinated by how they thought. Like they were having these conversations about money, which wasn't a dirty word. It was attractive, and it was really like you're encouraged to lean in, ask questions about how they were creating the lifestyles that they were they creating time freedom instead of trading time for money for paychecks. And I remember one of my mentors actually introduced me to this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And there was this image here, and it was by Robert Kiyosaki, and it completely reframed how I saw money. And I learned about this cash flow quadrant. So I love to show this because if any of you lack a visual, you can be like I was, the employee up the top where I was working for somebody else and I was trading time for money. I also at this time was trying to get ahead, be smart. I was also life coaching and mindset coaching on the side. So I was self-employed. I also had that as another way of generating money where I owned my job, but I'm still trading time for money. But I came into this space and I got exposed or invited to learn a little bit more about how I could actually become a business owner, where I essentially own a system where I can create leveraged income. And then eventually, with that money from my overflow, I can become an investor where money works for me. And so through this business model, I guess I stepped into the business owner mode. I was exposed to this is a different way I could make money. And this could be a way I can create an asset that's going to continue to pay me even when I'm not trading my time for money. And so I don't know if you remember in that first slide, there was a little picture on the side where it was me and my husband, we bought our first property. And I think a lot of people think that when you step into this space about all the money that you're going to make in a big paycheck, it was actually the extra $500 a month that allowed us to put the savings away, that allowed us to buy that first property. And that was a big thing for me because I couldn't get ahead with my normal child protection wage. I was still just surviving. So it was my Juice Plus paycheck that I got inspired by with the conversations in this community that's how we first bought our property. But what was even more, I think, impressive after that was what I started to learn about wealth. There was another book that I got introduced to when I just bought my property, and I was loving like surrounding myself in this community, being immersed by these conversations. And I think a lot of people think that the real gift here is like, yeah, it's health and it's a little bit of extra money, but it was actually my community and the conversations that I started having, being exposed to, and the books I started to read, because nobody was having these conversations in my personal network. Let me know if any of you guys were exposed to these conversations in your upbringing, but it wasn't something I was taught at school. So with these conversations in a masterclass like this that I was exposed to, I started digging a little bit deeper into financial education. And a book, like I said, was Rich Dad Poor Dad. Another one was The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley. And this book completely reshaped my understanding of what wealth actually looks like. And I remember reading it being like, okay, oh my gosh, most millionaires aren't that flashy. They actually live below their means. And real wealth is built through consistency, not extravagance. And real wealth, it actually isn't about how much money you make, it's how you manage it. It's the financial habits, it's the discipline, it's the delayed gratification, no matter what your income level is. So, according to the millionaire next door, most self-made millionaires drive used cars, they live in average homes, they're focused on rent investing or investing. They're not about impressing people. And it comes back to that saying, I don't want to buy things that I don't need to impress people that I don't like. And that really, I guess, resonated with me deeply because at this point I was only making a few $100s extra a month, but it was the cream, right? It was my overflow. I still had my job. And I remember being like, what if just if it's not about how big my paycheck is, but what if I gave my pay that extra money a bit more intention? So instead of going and buying the Jeep that really badly wanted or all the cool clothes, all that extra money actually went into paying off that first home. And I remember there's this really pivotal conversation. I think I've got it on this next slide for you. I'll talk about it actually in a second. I remember, and I always remember this conversation really early, and I think I was 3 or 4 years into my business. And there was a man actually in this industry who asked me to give him a lift home from a mastermind. And at this point, I was making like 6 figures a year, and I was still driving around my $5,000 Mazda. And he got in my car and he's like, "Are you serious?" And I was like, "What?" He's like, "You still drive around this car. You need to buy a new car." And I was like, "Why is that?" What, you're trying to sell a dream and you drive around a $5,000 Mazda? And I remember in my head being like, if only you knew the fact that we're in our early 20s and we pretty much own our property. Like, and I remember looking at him thinking he was leasing a very expensive car. He was spending a lot of money in a really massive mansion. And I remember trying not to take it personally. And I think the biggest gift was 2 years later when his business, he left. Long story short, that money that extravagant lifestyle, that money he was spending to impress people, it was all gone. And he was making a lot more money than I was. And it was just a really good reminder. It's not about the paycheck, it's about the habits and what you're doing with a little bit of money. Because it wasn't until 5 years later when we pretty much owned that first property outright and we became millionaires. We had a 7 figures net worth that I was like, that's when I earned the right to buy the Jeep. And it was just a really good reminder that financial wealth isn't about what looks flashy. Nobody would know what was going on behind the scenes because it was the habits that was happening behind the scenes and it wasn't about the big paycheck. It was about the extra $300 that allowed us to buy the first house, that allowed us to start putting money towards those things. So, like I was saying, I think fast forward 10 years, the most powerful part of both Shani and my story, and you're about to hear hers in a second, isn't just the income that we created, it's actually what we did with it. Because yes, our paychecks are incredible, but if I'm honest, you could probably earn a similar income in a high corporate career. It's not the income. But what you wouldn't have is the flexibility, the freedom, and the presence that we've had with our young families. We've had these incomes being at home with our babies. And what makes me most proud is from day one, we've made intentional choices. We haven't spent our income on luxury or inflation. We've used it to pay off debt, save and invest, buy assets that now generate an income for us. So now that we were able to set ourselves up as millionaires in our early 30s, we're able to now to make choices that align with our values, not from force. And we no longer work for money, we work with money, and we get to choose to work because it fulfills us. And that level of freedom is something that nobody can give you. It's actually something you have to go and create. And that's what we're excited to help you create today. So I just want to start with the mindset piece and a little bit of the education piece because I don't know what you guys think about money when you think about money? Is it the person with the big car, the fancy car, sorry, the big house, the luxury handbags? Because from what I learned from reading those books, real wealth is actually really unassuming. It's the people that you least expect that have most of the net wealth. So before you start building wealth, you've got to understand how you relate to it. So if you've got a pen, I'd love for you to quickly grab a pen. I just want you to finish these sentences. I'm gonna ask some questions and I just want you to finish the sentence and write it down. Because it doesn't matter if you're working hard, if you've got a bad relationship with money, and you've got these great intentions for it, you're probably gonna find it hard to get ahead. Because we've all inherited these stories about money. And even that was something that I was like really surprised by when I came into this business. And they were talking about your relationship with money. It's like, what do you mean you have a relationship with money? Like it's just money, right? But then I really started to delve in, and like this became one of the biggest pieces of work I did in this space for my business was how do I relate to money? Because everyone has an internal belief system about money. It's what we saw, it's what we heard, it's what we experienced growing up. And some of those beliefs can really empower us, while others can quietly sabotage us. And some of us aren't even aware about some of the money stories we're walking around with. So some of these things that you're about to uncover may be driving your financial decisions. They may be the fear, the limits, without you even realizing it. So with your pen, I'm just going to say some words. And I just want you to write down and finish it. So what are the first words or sentences that come to mind? And you don't have to justify it, edit it, overthink it, rationalize it. Just finish the sentence. Money is. People with a lot of money are. Rich people are. If I had more money, I would. Having money means. People who want to be rich are. Wanting more money makes me feel. Growing up, my family believed money was. Money causes. Earning more than, put a figure, a certain amount of month would feel. Are you aware of like an upper limit? Is there a certain amount of income that you feel comfortable with? Is there a certain amount that you can't imagine creating more than a month? Or if you did, how would that feel in your body? If I suddenly became rich, my life would. People who lose money are. Too much money makes people. And what I want to do, I'd love for you, I'm just going to leave this here for you. I want you to park this. And at the end of this masterclass, I want you to go back and have a look of what you've written. Some of these beliefs you may be conscious of, and some of them actually might take you a little bit by surprise. Like, wow, is that really what I think about money? And ask yourself as you're reading them, like, does that feel heavy? Does that feel conflicting with what I actually think I think? And then I write that down on paper. Does that surprise me? Do you see these beliefs come up? Can you identify where they've come from? Are they your parents? Is it the culture? Is it society? Because these unconscious beliefs are actually really powerful and they're going to determine how much you allow yourself to earn, how safe you feel actually holding and making money, and how confident you feel investing it. And once you're just aware of it, it's just like a belief on paper. Sometimes I think some of us get so caught up in our beliefs, we think, oh my gosh, like it's this big, heavy piece of work. But how many of you used to believe in Santa? Yeah? Do you still believe in Santa? There's just proof that it's just proof that your belief can change. And the way that you choose to rewire a change belief is you've just got to look for evidence of the contrary. If you can prove to yourself and find evidence that that's actually false, you start actually proving to your brain, like, that's actually not true. So what I'd really encourage you to do after this masterclass is and share with us. I know Shani and I would really love to hear what comes up, but choose one belief and then start rewiring it and starting looking for evidence of the opposite. Because true financial empowerment actually comes when your beliefs finally align with your vision. And so this is the part that's going to give you a really beautiful just canvas to feel safe as you start building structure and systems and strategy on top of that. So I'm going to flick it to Shan, who's going to take you from there.
Beautiful. Thanks, Lozzie. So we will have a whole bunch of recommended reads for you all at the end for you to take a screenshot of, where we'll share some of our most favorite books that we've read that really helped us move through those beliefs and rewire, create new neural pathways in around our money story. So we will have that for you. I'm also hoping I don't riff too much, and I will make time for Q&A at the end so we can have an open discussion. I just really want to create a safe space for everyone to ask all the questions that come up from today. But I'm going to switch gears a little bit. I really loved the foundational message that Lozzie shared, and I'm actually going to start talking about the strategy behind how do we begin? How do we start? How do we start to put our money into things that are going to work for us behind the scenes and create, I swear, like what I look back on it 10 years ago when I first started, I did not think I'd be where I am today. And I have this business to thank for it, but I also have it started with $500 a month. That's all it started with. I really have so much gratitude for that $500 a month. Some people look at that and they think, oh, it's not enough, or that person's earning more, or I need to earn more. But that is so incredibly powerful. And I'm going to show you exactly why now. So my story begins with, I was a registered nurse, as Celine shared, and I was in a lot of debt. For anyone here who's a nurse, you do a lot of prac work in a hospital. So I actually survived my university years with a credit card. I would pay for fuel with that. I would buy my groceries with a credit card. I had no financial literacy. No one taught me how to or not use a credit card. So I got to the end of my degree, particularly that last year. You work for free for a whole year, pretty much 40-hour weeks in a hospital. I did not have time to work. So I really just burnt through that credit card, and I ended up with, it was around about $15,000 all up, maxed out on this credit card. And I kept thinking well, when I get my job as a nurse, I'll start to pay it off. Well, I became a nurse and realized I had to adult, I had to pay rent, I had to pay bills, car registration, electricity, all the things. And I couldn't keep up. I don't know if anyone else feels like that, but I just felt like I was living week to week. And there was more month at the end of the money. And so when this business was presented to me, it was literally just for $500 a month to start creating a little bit of a, hole in that credit card debt to try and start to eradicate that. And that's all I ever wanted it to be. I never thought 10 years down the track, this business would have allowed me to create what I have today. So I'm just going to share my slides. So I started in 2015, Halloween 2015, 10 years ago. And I started to just put some of that money onto my credit card. And then I actually did something called a balance transfer. I don't know if anyone knows what that is, but essentially is I got all my debt, because I actually had a credit card here and a credit card there and a cash converters loan here and a little easy debt thing over here. And, you know, naughty Chani, who just kept trying to get money from everywhere, I consolidated all of the debt. And there was some really incredible, I should have looked before today's call, and I will actually have a look afterwards. But there were banks that that had this opportunity where you could roll all your debt into one, and they would give you 18 months interest free. So that's what I did. I rolled all of that $15,000 into one balance transfer, and I knew I had 18 months of interest free. So in my mind, I just thought, well, I'll use my Juice Plus income to start chipping away at that. Now, 18 months wasn't going to get the whole $15,000 paid off. So what I then did at the end of the term, I then rolled over into another balance transfer from a different bank and did the whole thing again. I had another 18-month period of interest free. And this really helped me, because what my biggest issue was with my debt was that I just could not chip away at it. I was paying the interest because the interest was so high. Now, one thing I do, there's a little caveat with this. They will give you a credit card with this balance transfer. And I think that this is where people go wrong. They think, oh, yes, I have 18 months interest free, but I'll just use this new credit card. What I actually did was I chopped that credit card up. I did not allow myself to use it, which meant I could not spend any money from the card, and the debt that I had rolled onto this card, I was chipping away at it interest free. So that was the first part of my strategy. And that's actually how I paid off my debt it was in less than 2 years after joining Juice Plus. So in it was just at the end of 2016, actually. So it was way less than 2 years. I was able to do that. So that was part of the strategy. The second part of the strategy for me, which I learned just by reading a really great book called The Barefoot Investor. I've just got it here, if you can see it there. It was to choose a budgeting system that was easy to follow. That's one thing I didn't have before joining Juice Plus. I was kind of just like willy-nilly, just like money came in, money went out. No savings strategy. No, like intentional, like this is where this money goes and this goes here. Like what I love about The Barefoot Investor, if anyone has read it, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's this really simple structure of buckets where you create different buckets for different things. So there's like your savings bucket, there's your bills bucket, there's rent, there's all these different things that you have money come in, like say in the holding bucket, and then you disperse a certain amount into all the different buckets. And that's where the discipline comes in. The key is do not steal from other buckets. So like, you know, if you want to go on a holiday, but your holiday bucket doesn't have the money, you don't then go and steal from the food bucket to go on into the holiday bucket, right? That's where the discipline comes, where you say, you know what, I haven't saved enough for a holiday. I'm going to have to say no to that for now. So I really recommend that book, Barefoot Investor. It is incredible. If you're not from Australia, if you're from New Zealand, let's just say, or somewhere else, the same principles apply. He'll talk about some Australian specific things, but the framework is the same. Once my business later down the track started to get a little bit bigger, and I started using what's called a business system, a business budgeting system. And the book for that is called Profit First. So that's for people who are earning more, around about that, like I would say $3,000 a month. That is a really incredible book because it teaches you how to run your buckets, your systems, your money through the lens of a company. So if anyone here is kind of like wanting to transition from personal bucket system to a business bucket system, those two books would be my absolute favorite for that. Really, really basic to understand and easy to follow. So the first step of the strategy is choose a budgeting system. My second one is obviously obliterate that debt as quickly as you can. once my debt was finished, and I had completely paid it off, I then started to follow what you can see here on the screen, which is a savings formula. And so what that meant is every quarter, I would increase my savings by 10%. So you can see here, the first quarter, I started saving 10% of my income. I started putting that aside. And then quarter two, it wasn't 10% plus 10%. So I wasn't then saving 20%. It was 10% of 10%. So can you see how there I've gone 11%, and then the next is 12.1. The next quarter is 13.31, 14, like so on and so on. Now, the strategy behind this and why this works so well is because you get to recalibrate in really small steps. So we want to be putting at least 10% aside. But if you want to create a little bit of like that, I don't know if anyone here has ever heard of the law of supply and demand, where you put a little bit of demand on yourself and then somehow the universe conspires and the supply comes in. That is what I really love about this, because you can see how going from 10% savings to 11% savings, that's really safe on my nervous system. That doesn't feel like too far stretched or too much. That was a really simple, easy step to take. And then the quarter after that, I upped it up 10% more to 12.1. And again, that felt really safe on my nervous system. I could do that really effortlessly. It didn't feel like a stretch. And actually, you will find that every quarter, as you increase it, it feels like that every time. Now, if you go from like saving 10% and then the next quarter you go, you know what, I could probably put about 30% aside. Let me tell you, I tried to do it. It did not work because it's too much of a big jump. It's too big for you, particularly if you've got some of these subliminal beliefs around money, or there's like part of your nervous system that doesn't feel safe around money, or you have, you've been conditioned to think about money in a certain way, like that will come creeping up. So the savings formula is actually just a really great way to increase over time. Now, there was a point, like I call it the tipping point. There was a tipping point in my business, I think, when I was around the 20% savings mark. I'd been doing it for a few years at that point. This is going to sound a little bit crazy, but there was just so much money coming in from Juice Plus. I was like, oh my gosh, like I can definitely save a little bit more than 20%, because there was a point where I was like, I don't know what to do with all this and I don't want to be silly with it. I really want to put it to work. So I actually, for most of the first 8 years, I put 40% aside. On average, it was about 40% of my income aside in the end. And so that went into savings. That was just going into savings. Now I'm going to talk in the next slide about how, like, what did I do with that savings? So if you have questions around that, I will cover that. But essentially the investing strategy of that savings was really simple. I saved 3 months worth of my expenses. And once I had that safety net sitting in my bank account, then everything after that went straight into appreciating assets. Now, the reason why I chose 3 months worth of expenses is because if anything was to happen, let's just say there's God forbid, an injury, illness, COVID, you lose your job, like anything, you cannot control what will happen. You can log into your internet banking and you can have this really safe feeling of, okay, I'm good for 3 months. I can figure it out. I can find a solution in the next 3 months. And that's what that 3 months is all about. It's just a safety buffer. It sits in your bank account, and I cannot tell you what it does to you every time you log into your internet banking and you see that 3-month buffer there. You just instantly feel safe, no matter what is going on in the stock market, cryptocurrency, life, business. Let's say your business starts to go a little bit backwards. Maybe you've fallen out of qualification or your clubs have gone down or something. You look at that buffer and you think, well, that's my rainy day fund. And I actually, I got to use that fund when I had a baby. It was the most amazing thing to step away for a few months and really enjoy my baby bubble. And yes, my income did go a little bit backwards because I disappeared for 6 months, right? I didn't expect my my business to continue on growing without me. Like I kind of, had to be showing face, and I wasn't, because I didn't want to. And then there were a couple of months there where I had to tap into that, and that I just felt so grateful for that. I had Rui in 2022. So you can imagine, yeah, it was just like this really incredible, like, oh, all that discipline like is paying off for me right now. So save 3 months of expenses, and then after that, we get to do the fun stuff. We get to start investing into some things. Now we've got 6 what are called asset classes, and I really want to talk about them briefly with you, just so you know what they are. But yeah, in 2019, after paying all my debt, getting my stuff in order, and having that 3-month safety buffer, I saved up 40 grand literally just from Juice Plus, and bought my first investment property with my husband, Matt. We went halves, so he put 40K in and I put 40K in, and we bought this really beautiful, it was a really old shack by the beach, but to say like, oh cool, like my first investment property was by the ocean, like how cool is that? And to be able to say Juice Plus did that for me was also like very, very cool. So let's talk about the 6 asset classes. I want to dive into that with you. Before I talk about them, I think what's really important to note is that most of us grow up thinking that making money and putting, money aside into a savings account is the extent of our wealth building. And that was certainly what I thought. I always thought, well, if I just pay off the credit card and then I start saving, then I'm good. But it goes so much far beyond that. There's this whole entire world of investment opportunities available to all of us. And I think really understanding the difference between the 6 asset classes is what separates people who earn money from people who build wealth. And so when I first started my wealth building journey, I had no idea about any of this. This all came from just having great books and podcasts in my ears, having incredible conversations with people in the Juice Plus community, my uplines, Celine, like just having great conversations, high level conversations, and asking great questions, watching YouTube videos, like just really investing time into understanding. I think that's the best thing you can do. And so, yeah, I was just so focused on earning the income that I was earning through Juice Plus, and then using that to then build wealth by educating myself on how to actually, preserve this money that I was earning from Juice Plus. So everything really changed for me once I kind of entered that world. So today I want to break down the 6 major asset classes, because these are 6 different classes that you can invest your money in. And yeah, not all of them are for everyone. There's one of the asset classes I'm not yet exposed to because I haven't learned about it. That's the gold one. And I'll explain more about the commodities and gold in a minute, but that's one that I'm not exposed to yet. But I plan to be. So let's talk about cash first and foremost. This is the most familiar one. This is, money sitting in your bank account or locked into like a long-term deposit or high interest savings account. It's your physical cash that's in the bank, in a high interest account. Does everyone know what that is? It's kind of like you lock your money away for like a fixed period, maybe 6 months or a year or 2 years, and then the bank gives you interest on that. It's considered the most, I'm going to say, quote unquote, safe, because it's liquid assets, right? It's quick to access. Why you would invest it this way? Emergency fund, very accessible, very quickly if something happens. It's a great way for short-term savings. It's also peace of mind, knowing that you've got this financial buffer sitting in your bank account. The reality of cash, though, I believe, is interest rates really suck. They're quite low at the moment. They're sitting, if you're lucky, you can get, a 4%, 5%, depending on the term, but that's, it's not often you find something like that. And with the rate of inflation, the cost of living and how much they're printing money, which has been like up to 7% in the last couple of years, your money is not, the interest you're earning is not keeping up with the inflation. which means that while your money is safe, you're actually losing purchasing power with it over time because of the value of that dollar. So my take on cash is keep your 3 to 6 months of expenses in the bank account, lock it into, one of these high interest rate accounts if you can, and then there's your peace of mind money. But I don't believe this is where you can build true wealth. This is definitely an incredible foundation, but I wouldn't call it a growth strategy. I would call it more like cash is a tool for liquidity and safety, but not wealth creation. So then we've got stocks and shares, right? So stocks and shares are called equities as well. And this is where you can buy stocks and shares of different companies, and essentially you own a piece of that company when you buy a stock or a share. So when you buy a stock, you're buying just like a really small ownership of a stake in a company like Apple or Tesla or whatever it may be. You can buy individual stocks and shares. Say you are really passionate about a company that you want to buy shares in, you can do that. Or you can buy what's called index funds, otherwise known as ETFs. And this is where it's like, the best way to describe it is like a bucket with hundreds up to thousands of different companies in the one bucket. So that means that you can buy one ETF, but you get exposure to hundreds and thousands of companies at one time with that one bucket. So an example of this, like, you can invest in different companies on the S&P 500, which is the top 500 companies in the USA, or the ASX 200, which is Australian top 200 companies. But there are also index funds or ETFs that have several. I love index funds and ETFs, and that's what we do invest in, because you're kind of like exposing yourself and diversifying your investments, right? You're not just like all in on one. You get a really good, like, kind of like at the buffet, right? You get a little bit of everything. You get your fingers in all the little pies. So why would you invest here? Historically, and one of the books we recommend shares this a lot, Tony Robbins' Unshakable, stocks have returned an average of, I'm going to say 10%, over long term. Historically, they're always, they're on an upward trend. So that's really nice as a long-term strategy. If you're going to put money into stocks and shares, it's a kind of like a set and forget thing. It's not a thing you watch, unless you're a trader, but you don't sit there and watch it and go, oh, it's gone up, oh, it's gone down. You just set and forget, look at it in 10 years time. That's the kind of vibe you do from these. I really think this is a great place to start. And like Celine, I think we were talking about this off before we started recording, but there's so many amazing apps and companies now that help you choose different ETFs and index funds, and through an app, and you can spend $4.70 at the shop, and 30 cents of that like rounds up to $5. It goes into your account, and it's such a great way to like just quickly like add a little bit month on month, week on week, while you're doing your grocery shopping. So there's really great opportunities like that. The reality of the stock market is it goes up and down. Yes, volatility is normal, but generally, this is like a low to medium risk asset class. Short-term fluctuations, yes, they can be scary and they happen, but historically the market trends upwards, which is nice to know. Then we've got property. Property is probably where Matt and I are exposed the most. It's definitely Matt's wheelhouse. So this is where we invest a lot of our money into. And again, like, you may not feel confident with property. So that may not be your number one asset class. Everyone's different, right? And you expose yourself to the asset classes that you love to learn about and the ones that you feel really safe with. Some are more risk averse than others. So yeah, don't, just because I like invest mostly in property doesn't mean you should. I'm just saying, like, this is our favorite one. So property is probably the most tangible asset class, I would say, because this is where you own physical real estate. There's residential properties, there's commercial, there's developmental, there's different investment property strategies that you can do. You can rent them, you can buy off the plan, you can resell, you can flip, you can do so many things with property. The best thing about it is you get to leverage with property, which means you can borrow off the bank to to grow your equity or your wealth with property, and that's called good debt. When you are leveraging, which means you are borrowing money from the bank to have your property, you know, maybe you might do a renovation on it and then you on sell it for more than what you paid. That's good debt, right? You leveraged to do that and it gave you a profit. So why would you invest here? Capital growth, right? Property value increases over time, or you've got rental income coming in, so you've got cash flow there that can pay off the mortgage. It's tangible, so it's like a physical product that you can go and see. Again, you can leverage for this in Australia anyway. There's tax benefits, and historically in Australia, property usually doubles every 7 to 10 years in a good market. So it's safe. It's a safe one, but also it comes with risk. All of these do. Okay, I'm not saying that this is the best, but it does come with risks as well. Bonds are probably the least understood, I would say. To me, they're like the least sexy, but they play a really important role in wealth preservation, especially as you get older. So bonds are, when you buy a bond, you're essentially lending money to like a corporation, and then they promise to pay you back the principal amount and the interest after a set period of time. So yeah, it's a I guess a predictable income stream. You know that you're going to get that money back, lower risk than stocks. It's a great way to diversify your portfolio if you're wanting to like do more than 1 or 2 asset classes. The returns are typically lower, but that's okay. You know, someone who's a little bit like older or looking to retire soon, like that actually would be a really clever thing to do, because then they're not going to do something that's super risky. That's not clever, right? So this is a really great one. We have bonds, but also like not that much, not that many, but that we will kind of split our percentage of asset classes of what we invest into as we go through our seasons. I think that's like a really natural thing to do. Then we've got cryptocurrency. I'm mindful of time, so I'm just going to go through these really quick. But crypto is kind of like where we get into a little bit more like risky asset class, digital currency. Yeah, like Bitcoin. Everybody knows Bitcoin or Ethereum, Solana, for example. This is called decentralized digital funds, right? So there's no bank involved. The government doesn't control it. There's huge potential for growth, but there's also huge potential for loss. This is an incredibly volatile market. You know, and I've seen Bitcoin actually happened a couple of weeks ago. We watched our cryptocurrency portfolio literally go down. I think it was like maybe 800 grand in 40 minutes because of something that Trump said overseas, and it's like affected the market, but then it went back up, right? So it's very volatile, and definitely something, again, I wouldn't like sit and watch, set and forget kind of style. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I actually really love learning about cryptocurrency. Yes, it's high risk, extremely volatile. Like the market can drop 20% in one day. I've seen that happen, but high risk, high reward, right? But before investing into something like crypto, like I would say, definitely do your homework and understand it really well. It does require a significant amount of education to understand what you're investing in with crypto. I will spend hours listening to YouTube videos on it and podcast, and I'm still wrapping my head around it years after, you know, being exposed to it. So yeah, the last one, commodities and gold. Like I said before, we're not exposed to this one, but it's definitely something I'm wanting to learn about. This is literally heavy metals, gold. Gold is the most famous one, the most known one. Gold goes up in price, right? So you can trade on gold, silver, platinum, or commodities like oil, natural gas. There's agricultural commodities like wheat, coffee. There's so many different ones. So again, just another way for you to invest into something that will go up. So that's the basics of the asset classes. And I just wanted to explain those to you because I didn't know any of these existed 10 years ago. When I kind of started to understand them, I was like, oh, okay. Now for us, we have exposure to all of those except commodities and gold. And our portfolio, our investment portfolio is diversified, I should say. We probably hold 60% in property, and the rest is in the rest. The 40% is divided between the rest. Now, because we love property, what we did with this little home that we purchased, we built a home, which is here up. You can see 2021. Matt's a builder, so this is his wheelhouse. So this was definitely something we felt comfortable doing. We divided the block. We sold the front off. We built this 3-story home on the back. You can see in 2021. And then in 2023, our project called Noosa was finished. So the profits that we made from the white 3-story house, you can see, we rolled all of it into this next project, which was 6. You can see they're 3-story. Again, it was on the same street. And then we sold all of those, and then we rolled all of those profits into our project called Nissi Villas, which you can see at the bottom there. They're 13 luxury estate villas in Bali. And we sold most of them and held on to 3. So that is what's generating like a passive income for us now, that we get paid quarterly. Well, we have our return on that quarterly. And I should say, because of the strategy of like purchasing the first home and then subdividing and building this and rolling the profits into that and then rolling into this, we don't have any debt on those 3 villas that we have. So the income that comes in from that is our income. We don't have to pay it off. And this was all from Juice Plus. This is what blows my mind. This was all from that little $500 a month in the beginning, which turned into more. But I call this my Juice Plus strategy. Like it's so incredible that we have exposure to a business model like this that allows opportunity like this. And then we are currently building a hotel next door to Nissi Villas in Bali. This is 13 luxury suites. It will be ready in June next year. And we've held on to 11 of these. We've gone halves with our business partner. So we're holding on to 5.5 and they're holding on to 5.5, and we've sold the rest. And again, passive income, no debt on this. And this was all from everything I shared with you. Following a budgeting system, obliterating my debt, the 3 months of expenses, keeping me safe, saving, investing. So when we get to redefine what wealth is, I just want to say, I think that it's not about becoming obsessed with this and making it your everything, but it is about you taking your power back so that you never have to make decisions from a place of fear. And instead you get to live a life that is so in alignment with your values. And Loz and I were reflecting on this the other day about how this beautiful business not only created us an opportunity to work from home and yes, create an income that allowed us to save and invest, but it's now allowed us to sit in motherhood where we get to work around the babies, like they're at home. Actually, my kids, I've got one, Lozzie's kids and my little son, like we've never had to compromise on anything in terms of spending time with them. And I have gratitude for Juice Plus every single day because of that, because we get to do this at home. But the exposure that I've had over the last 10 years to incredible mentors and financial literacy, like that has led me to be able to live a life in alignment with my values. And I want that for you too. And I think so many people overestimate what they can build in a year, but you can underestimate what you can create in 10. And the little registered nurse 10 years ago who said yes to this business and, got her first few customers, if you would have told her like in 10 years from now, this is what you would have created, I would have said, did I win the lotto or something? Like how? That doesn't seem realistic to me. How? So you can really create so much here. Doesn't matter how much you're earning. As you can see, it's not about how much you earn. It's just about what you do with it. And I know many, many people in this industry who earn way more than I do and have nothing because they don't have the discipline or the financial literacy to create appreciating assets as part of their strategy here. So don't be one of those people. It's about playing the long game and really focusing on your vision. So yes, together we really want to empower you to not only create income through this business model, but really use it as a vehicle for financial literacy and legacy and freedom, so that you get to make decisions based on your values, not fears. You can see here, these are all our favorite photos of our families traveling the world. The magic moments have been amazing. We've been able to pick up after putting this business on ice for a little bit, whether that was motherhood or change of seasons in life or whatever. This business has always been here. I've had my business qualified every single month since qualifying for the first time. And that has really, truly been one of the best strategies of all. So yeah, we just really wanted to empower you with that and show you what's possible. These are our recommended reads. Think and Grow Rich and Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which Lozzie mentioned about. There's Unshakable there by Tony Robbins, which is, again, like a really beautiful book around understanding investing in all the different asset classes, but also having the emotional intelligence and the education around how the market goes up and down and how to really regulate your nervous system when things like that happen, how to have that long-term vision. The Millionaire Next Door is Matt's favorite book. Matt literally walks around with no shoes and holes in his board shorts, and he doesn't care because he read this book and he's like, I want to be the millionaire next door, which, as you'll know when you read the book, it's about the frugal, humble millionaire who you would never blink at and think, oh my gosh, they must be a millionaire. Like, you just wouldn't even know. Profit First and Barefoot Investor I mentioned as well. I really want to point out the Abundance Code, How to Bust the 7 Money Myths for a Rich Life. That one's a really beautiful book if you are wanting to bust through some money stories and limiting beliefs. And it's very...
I'm going to suggest that's a good one for you guys. If you're going back through the money mindset beliefs, the activity, and you look back on some of the things that you guys have written down, because some of you might not be aware of some of those unconscious beliefs, maybe for the first time. Like I said, I wasn't exposed to any of this before I came into this business. So if you've never had a look at your money beliefs, and this is like the first time you've had a look on paper, and you're like, well, that's really daunting. Like, no wonder I'm struggling with money. Like, this is what I believe about it. It's a good starting point, but this book is a really good one to then go pick up if you know that you've got to do some work around your beliefs around money, because it rewires pretty much all your money beliefs. Will come down to 7 dominating ones, and it will come through here and it'll help you rewrite them in that book too.
Yeah. But Celine, I don't know if we have time for Q&A. I'm happy to stay on for however long.
Yeah, look, I think that definitely pop some questions in there, but I do want to, Jess had said something about, did you have moments where it all felt too hard or unachievable? And I'm going to answer yes for the ladies, because, I've walked this journey with you both. I think that sometimes what happens too is people compare their chapter 1 or 2 with somebody else's, chapter 50, and they're looking at you as the women that you are today, and they're forgetting that you literally are exactly wherever they may be now. You've actually walked along that journey. So for somebody who's just starting out, feels like you haven't got it together, and I'll be honest as well, guys, it took me a long time to actually get to learn all this. Like, I was probably 15, 20 years after where the ladies were age-wise when I actually started to learn all this stuff. And it's why it's been so important for me to make sure our kids know it. So, they've had the Barefoot Investor book given to them. They've had the Tony Robbins books given to them. They've done the Mastermind and Money courses with MJP and all the rest kind of thing, because we didn't know this early enough. And so money, we had those old thought, and you gave me such a great reminder, Lauren, as you were reading so many of those beliefs. And it's a constant journey of continuing to evolve your beliefs, because there will be times where you hit another ceiling and you hit another ceiling. And it always brings me back to Chani in I think it was maybe in your NMD speech or one of the times on stage, you talked about every level brings another devil. And it's a little bit the same with your money beliefs. You'll think you're through it, and then you go, oh, all right, okay, there's another belief that's suddenly coming in and whatever. And the other thing that I will say is, I really want to reiterate what the ladies said. Start now. It does not matter if your check is $100 this month. Take $10 and save it. Like start small. There are so many, little apps. There's one I play around with where literally it's just as a few dollars, or it rounds up like what you said, Chani, and it literally will throw that over there. Sometimes that's $1 or whatever like that, but it's going to go into that little fund and it starts to build up, because I'm already now looking at the next generation with our grandkids and what we can be creating for them. So I really encourage you that it's something. In fact, the commitment of doing that dollar, that $10, whatever that, starts the habit. And I'm reading a great book at the moment that's around Keystone Habits that will then kickstart that next level of behaviors in your mind. So let's have a look. Are there any questions that are in here? It's been incredibly valuable.
I'd like to just touch on, I think I saw it come up in the chat too, but I know just to echo it.
Yep.
When we all start in the same spot, and like Shani spoke about those buckets, like at the start, I think it took us like 3 years to really have those buckets on autopilot where you've got the savings behind you. And it does feel like, when that question around, does it ever feel like it's going to get any easier? Like, don't overestimate or underestimate, sorry, like the extra $50, because it feels like, when is it going to happen? Like, when does it happen? But the whole point of, once you've got your 3 months in your safety net and you've got your bucket set, that's the hard work, because then you get to live on autopilot and you're not checking it. Like, a lot of these investment opportunities, they are set and forgets. If you're into property, and we're going to say, you can message Shannon or myself too, because there's services out there like me, like property is not our wheelhouse. We're not passionate about property. We don't feel confident, but there's services out there that can help you get into those spaces where it is a set and forget. And so, like, once you've got it set though, like for the last 8 years, it's all been compounding. That little bit that you're putting in, the whole point is it doesn't just sit there in an asset, right? It's not like it's on their savings account. They are continuing to grow and grow and grow and grow. So it is like the wealth. It starts little. That's the whole point of compounding wealth. And you might feel like you're not getting anywhere in the first few years. But that's why we say don't overestimate or underestimate where you can be in 10, because that's where it starts to compound and you forget how far that $50 at the start can go. And that's really all it's been for us. It was the same methodology, and it felt in the first years like, when is this ever going to happen? Then you don't look at it because it's just your emotions out of it. You've got your bucket set up, you're living in overflow, everything's getting invested. And then every month or every quarter, you're looking at your investments and you're like, wow, when did this happen? And it all came from the extra juice plus paycheck. So yeah, it starts small, but that's how it's those financial habits that really set you up.
And I love, I love that. I think it's so important as well, just to know that it is about starting. That's the most important thing. If you could walk away from this call today with Chani and Lauren, and we'll share the assets and all the rest kind of thing. And I also would really encourage you to follow their podcast, because they'll talk all different things, but often talk into things like this, and business and all the rest as well. There's always gold that gets dropped by the ladies as well. So I would really encourage you. Chani or Lauren, can you drop the link for your podcast in there? And that, otherwise I'll share it in the group, because I follow it online. But I would just really encourage you to start. That is the most important thing. It is never too late to start. And for those of you who might be my era on here and haven't started, start, okay? Drop me a message if you want to. I've got a simple one that honestly, you don't need to know anything, and you can literally it does any of these things that Shani's been talking about. That you can just like put a few dollars in and play and whatever like that, and not worry about it. Start no matter where you are. If you walk away from here and the only messages you've got is start small, start now, okay? And it doesn't matter what your check is right now. And it doesn't matter how small that saving is right now, okay? It all will add up and compound, I think there's that old saying, when's the best time to start investing? Yesterday. What's the second best time? Today, right now, to go doing whatever that looks like, kind of thing. So what we will do is we may actually twist the arms of the ladies to come back into talking about some of their strategies down the track as well, to be able to talk about in their business and what they're looking at and how they're reinventing themselves as well, because it's different seasons. They've gone through everything from being young and kind of carefree to now mums and building on what does the next part of the strategy look like. For a single mom, there we go. Shani's just putting it in there as well. The abundance code. There you go. So the books, we will make sure that we share that again, that screenshot of that, and we will be sharing this recording so you can go back over it and study it. I think it'll be an amazing resource for you to be able to revisit time and time again. Can you all please share your favorite emoji as a huge thank you to these two beautiful women, Lauren and Chani. Thank you so much for your time and the effort that you put into preparing for today's call. We really, really appreciate and love you guys.